Violin bows can cause you a lot of problems. And today I want to talk to you about one problem that actually happened to my daughter's bow just this morning. Let me show you what happened. She came to me and said, as I tighten the bow, nothing's happening. Notice how I'm turning the screw, but the frog's not going and the hair is still really loose. And then if you pull on the screw actually comes right out. Well, this is actually an easy problem. All we need to do is take this off, and underneath here is an eyelet. It's called a bow eyelet. And this little brass piece gets stripped out. So the threads on the screw are fine, but the threads inside of this are actually torn out. So you can actually push this thing in and all the way through, because there's nothing else inside of here that's grabbing. It's all been ripped out. So what you can do is you can take your screw right here and just untwist this. When you do this, you got to be careful that you don't twist your hair up, and by turning the frog too far around, you want to keep your hair where it swings out, and it will let that frog lay right up against the bow. If you're a teacher, what I like to do is I like to save the frogs, the entire frog piece, off of old bows that are no longer good, that have been broken. And what I can do is I can actually steal this. Now the thread pitch is a little bit different on certain bows, so sometimes you need to check that by turning the screw in to make sure it threads in correctly. If it doesn't want to thread, it means the thread pitch or the spacing on these threads is different than the spacing of the threads inside of the eyelet. So on this one, then we're just going to take this eyelet out. And screw it into this one. When you get down to the end, this is where things get more fun. You need to make sure that the eyelet is straight with the frog. So when you have this through here, it's pulling straight and not at an angle across the frog at all. That looks about right. As I unscrew it, it might bounce around on me a little bit. That's okay. The other thing I'm worried about then is as this eyelet goes up inside the notch on this bow, that it lines up perfectly with this hole. Because as this screw goes inside, it needs to match this eyelet perfectly. It can't hit here or down here. It's got to hit perfectly right in the middle. And the way you do that is when you insert this, you can look inside when there's still a little bit of sunlight coming in there, and you can see that eyelet actually going through the hole. If you're looking inside this hole, you can actually see this eyelet sliding up in there. And you want to make sure that they're set at the right height. And if not, all you have to do is take the eyelet and turn it 1/2 turn, depending on if you need to go higher or lower. One thing that can happen is if you don't have your eyelet screwed in far enough into the bow, your frog can actually create a gap right back here on the back of it. Do you see how this is actually, how the frog is coming off the shaft of the bow a little bit here, but nice and tight right up here? This means that the eyelet's not screwed in far enough. So we need to take it back out and go in one more tighter so that when we put this screw in, so that it holds that frog in nice and tight. If it's in too far, the front of the frog will actually come off and the back will be tied up against there. So you need to balance that back out. So what you want is this slide, this thin metal piece here, to run really even and consistent clear across the entire shaft of the bow. Now with the new eyelet installed, as you tighten your bow, you should be drawing that hair back to where that hair becomes taut. Saving old parts from broken bows is a really good idea. Just give yourself a place, an old jar, a bucket, a best teacher of the year mug, whatever it is. Throw all those parts, especially the frogs and screws, from the old bows in there. That way when you need the parts, you've got them. I hope this tip is helpful to you. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at steve@repairmasterclass.com. Cheers. Because as this